Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. We've had a wild 24 hours in the NFL. What is that action doing to our dynasty teams? Well, let's find out. All right. Thank you for joining us tonight in the Birdhouse. It's fine Wednesday evening for a little AMA. Throw your questions down in the chat. You can also ask me at buymeacoffee.com. I'll just leave that in the chat for you. If I don't get to your questions during the show, you can always give me a coffee and I'll be glad to answer your questions there. So, what has gone on in the NFL the last 24 hours? These guys, these GMs are playing like they're doing their own dynasty leagues, right? I mean, I don't know. Diontae Johnson going to the Ravens. Anthony Richardson benched. And are the Cleveland Browns like a thing now? Jeez. I don't know what to think. All right, let's get things rolling with our thoughts on Diontae Johnson going from the Carolina Panthers to the Baltimore Ravens. So Diontae leaves behind one good game in Carolina from Andy Dalton's slinging it around. His first game in action, catching everybody by surprise. I like Diontae going into the season. I thought it was a great opportunity for him, great opportunity for Bryce Young, and thought that they had a new exciting offense with Dave Canales, but not so much. So the Panthers have decided to go their own way and heading down the road of a rebuild. And so they shipped off Diontae and his contract to the contending Baltimore Ravens. And Lamar Jackson couldn't be happier. But what does this mean for your dynasty teams and those that have Diontae Johnson on their rosters? Well, it's a big, fat, that's what it is, because Diontae has now got to fight off targets from Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, not so much from Derrick Henry, but he's got the Lamar rushing attempts in there. Sure, Diontae might have a few good games left in the tank this season. He's a great route runner, great player. I mean, kudos to the Ravens for making the deal. It's great for real life, but dynasty-wise, I'm not loving it. Now, granted, there wasn't much going right for Diontae where he was, so things couldn't really be any worse. But redraft purposes, he's almost droppable at this point, depending on how deep the league is. Saw a couple of people drop him actually in two of my redraft leagues. But those were shallower ones. If it's a deeper one, you definitely still want to hang on to Diontae. Talent's still there. You just don't know which week to start him. So best ball, on the other hand, best ball is a format where you could go out and sneakily buy Diontae. So keep that in mind, because Diontae, like I said, is a talented receiver. Got all these other options there. He knows how to get open, right? So once he figures this offense out, I mean, he's going to have a couple of good games this rest of the year. So don't be afraid to go out and kick the tires on him in a best ball league, all right? So keep that in mind. Now, what does this do for the rest of the Ravens? Not much. I'd say it helps Lamar's ceiling. But, I mean, where does Lamar have to go, right now. He just threw for 5 touchdowns a couple of weeks ago. Now, I know last week wasn't great. He threw a ball off the face mask of Rashad Bateman, for crying out loud, right after Rashad Bateman had, his best game as a Raven. So I don't know that particular pass had anything to do with them going out and acquiring Diontae as much as possibly Stephon Diggs' injury and the announcement that he was out for the season. Because if you noticed, at least on Sleeper, the announcement for the trade going through just happened to go through simultaneously as we bring up Diontae here for you. There he is. Yes. Still have him as a Panther, apparently, even though he practiced today with the Ravens. But Diontae's a great route runner, very similar to Stephon Diggs in that fact, actually. Diggs is probably faster. But anyway, the Texans definitely would have been a team that would have been able to use Diontae Johnson. And so once Stephon Diggs was announced out for the year, it took 30 minutes before the trade to the Ravens was announced. So Baltimore, seeing the Texans as one of their heavy competitors in the AFC, I don't blame them at all for making this move. Definitely solidifies their offense. I mean, think about their wide receiver core now. They're looking at Zay, Diontae, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar is the 4. I mean, 2 solid tight ends, and Andrews and Likely. And then, of course, the running game of Derrick Henry with Keaton Mitchell coming back to practice today. So now you're going to have Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell to deal with when you're not trying to tackle Derrick Henry. So this Baltimore offense, which already looked unstoppable over multiple times over the first half of the season, is now looking to stack the deck heading into this second half. And all this can translate into more and more fantasy points for Lamar Jackson. So not that Lamar Jackson was out there in your leagues, because all of my leagues, pretty much anybody who's got Lamar is a contender already. So I don't know that you're going to be able to trade for Lamar from a rebuilding team in your league. But it's even more wheels up right now. It's like an 18-wheeler wheels up for Lamar this second half of the 2024 season. So, any questions on Diontae Johnson, please just drop a line. Birdhouse Dynasty Show. buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. I'll be happy to answer yours. You can also check me out on my Patreon, patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. All right, let's move along to the other big news, and that would have to do with Anthony Richardson, of course, and his dissension to the Indianapolis Colts bench in favor of Joe Flacco. Shane Steichen announcing that over the last, what was that? That was yesterday. Trying to remember. I'm getting the days confused here. It's Wednesday night. Yes, it was yesterday. They announced they were benching Anthony Richardson in favor of Joe Flacco. This is wheels up for basically the entire Indianapolis Colts offense, especially the wide receiver core. I mean, Michael Pittman, you could have left for dead, pretty much in the same situation Diontae Johnson was in. But now, yeah, Michael Pittman back to life. Woo! If you're a rebuilder and trying to get rid of him, now's the time. Get out there, get him on the block, get what you can. All right. Try for that late first. If you got to settle for a couple seconds, by all means, go for it. Josh Downs, even more. I love Josh Downs right now. If you're a follower of Destination Destination Dynasty, you know that his Trinity score over there is amazing. And so Josh Downs has shown this season. Now, granted, last week his touchdown was a bomb from Richardson, but the evidence was there that he has become a great route runner in this league, and he will definitely benefit most from Joe Flacco being at the helm. So I would definitely try kicking the tires on Mr. Josh Downs. The other receivers, Alec Pierce, of course, was catching a bunch of those bombs from Anthony Richardson, but I don't see this as something that's a bad deal for him by any means. It's not like Flacco can't sling it deep. So him, A.D. Mitchell could come back to life here. Second half of the season, rookie. Check out A.D. Mitchell, maybe the buyer in the rookie draft, in your rookie draft, who took him in the second round, is just had enough, just wants to re-roll for another second next year. I wouldn't mind doing it. This next draft, I don't know that there's anybody that's going to be there in the second round for you in this 2025 upcoming rookie draft is going to be as good as A.D. Mitchell is. All right. There's some decent receivers there, but they're not as talented as this year's class of receivers. All right. Ricky Pearsall, those guys that went in the second round are much better receivers, much, much better receivers than the type of wide receivers you're going to be looking at in the second round of the 2025 rookie drafts you'll have in your leagues. The receivers that, put it this way, the quality of receivers that you're going to be looking at in the second round of this upcoming draft are the equivalent of what this past year's third round receivers were, like Javon Baker, Jalen Polk. I don't even want to put Jalen Polk into that category. He's just struggled. I mean, he's been on the field. I feel it's coming for Polk. He's just got to get the chemistry down with Drake May. May is looking phenomenal. So keep those Jalen Polk shares. Don't dump him just because he's had a few down weeks. And now he's banged up. So somebody I would kick the tires on is Jalen Polk for sure. But back to Joe Flacco. Flacco's looked great over the last couple of seasons. Look at the numbers here for Indy so far. In the 3 games he's played, let's go back up here. In the 3 games he's played, he's been, let's see, first game he played was against Pittsburgh, 16-26, 168, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's against tough Steelers defense. All right. Then against Jacksonville, he just went bonkers. 33 of 44, 359, 3 touchdowns. And then 2 weeks ago against Tennessee, 22 of 30, 189, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. But, so that all that totals up to 7 touchdowns and 1 interception so far for Flacco. Spreads the ball around. He can throw the short to intermediate passes, those passes that Richardson has struggled with just immensely. Like, I don't even know how to describe the struggles Richardson's had. I mean, at one point last week, he was, I believe, either it was 2 for 15 or 2 for 17 in passes. And then at that point had the 1 touchdown, the 69-yarder to Josh Downs, but still 2 for 15, if that's what it was. That is just horrendous. Like, coming into rookie drafts, I was out on Richardson, but there's Allen coming in. He will be back and better than ever. I'm holding. Well, Allen, you go ahead and hold on to him because I don't know what you'd get for him out on the open market anyway. But I don't blame you. I would hold too. I mean, I'm not giving up somebody as talented as Richardson for a second rounder. I mean, I don't know what you could, if you're a contender and you want to get rid of him, I don't know what could you get for him? Diontae Johnson? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're going out there and getting for the guy, actually. Maybe an injured Chris Godwin, I don't know that you could get that much. And that's saying something. I mean, because Godwin, we don't know if he'll be back in Tampa. I think personally, I think he will, because the Bucs have shown loyalty to players, and Godwin has definitely been one of those guys. So I think he will be back in Tampa next year. But that's just, I'm looking through it through pewter colored glasses there. But back to Richardson, because he truly is now probably the most polarizing player in Dynasty. He already was very polarizing coming into this season, but I think that more than half of the league, more than half of the Dynasty community was in on him. Even though the price was extremely inflated. I mean, he went as high as, I want to say 6 or 7 in the start. Some of the startups I was in this year, which was just, I couldn't pay that price. All right. If he was there in the second round, though, I was jumping on him too. All right. So I don't know. It's just too tough to just give up on him. But I mean, we've seen examples of this over the past few years. Trey Lance go to, Justin Fields. Just a couple of names of guys who they just couldn't translate their success in college over to the NFL. I mean, and Richardson, to be fair, he only had like a dozen starts since high school before coming into the NFL. And then you take into account last year he only played 3 or 4 games. So coming into this season, his second season in the NFL, he literally only had 16 total starts since high school. Okay. So I think that the Colts still want it to happen. It's like I said on Sunday night show. The Colts have to take a real hard, good look at themselves and ask themselves the one question. Can Joe Flacco get this team to the Super Bowl? And if the answer is yes, or the answer is maybe, then you really have to consider making the switch. But when I was arguing for Richardson, because I was on that side on Sunday night to keep Richardson in there, I was looking back at Josh Allen and his struggles early on in his career. And I was looking at it more so from the perspective of Joe Flacco not being able to take this team that the Colts have to an actual Super Bowl. Now, is it possible? Absolutely. I mean, Flacco's a grizzled veteran. He's been there before, won a Super Bowl. He's won a playoff game in Denver against Peyton Manning. That was unbelievable, right? Allen adding in here. I watched the QB School episode with JT O'Sullivan on this last game, which is supposedly so bad that it got him benched, and most of the plays were good. He was talking about a few plays with shaky fundamentals, but really the rest was bad scheme and mistakes, pass pro and receivers. Yes, there were a few drops. I definitely know that. But every quarterback has some drops from the receivers, right? I think that it's just, I don't know that it's a mental thing with Anthony Richardson. Like I heard an interview with him today with some of the local reporters, and he still seemed confident. Like he was going to, like the job was still going to be his, and it's just an opportunity for him to learn. And he didn't seem rattled in the interview at all. So I think the kid's got a good head on his shoulders, and we'll see. I don't think this is like what was the kid, Terrell Pryor from Ohio State, where this is a situation where they're going to try and turn him into a wide receiver. Let's not go there yet. But, if I'm a rebuilding team, am I buying Anthony Richardson? Am I doing a QB swap with like Baker Mayfield for Anthony Richardson? Hell no. Am I doing Sam Darnold for Anthony Richardson? That's something I would consider, right? Darnold's a guy who in Superflex is like depending on your league's economy, is like a borderline back end first, second rounder. It just depends on how stingy you want to be with Sam Darnold. What you're trying to sell is Sam Darnold's going to get a gig next season, which he probably will. Unless he wins the Super Bowl, I don't see him being the quarterback of the future for the Vikings. So I think that Darnold will be able to go somewhere and get an opportunity. I mean, we've seen, look at Mayfield. I just brought him up. Look at what Mayfield's been able to do down in Tampa now. And so I think that Darnold will have a shot. So that'd be something to consider. It all just depends. If you've got Richardson and you're contending, like you're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in your league, you got to try and see what you can get for him. Because for me, I am not buying that Anthony Richardson is going to get another contract with the Colts now. The track record of guys picked in this range who have gotten benched this early in their career, look at it. Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, right? Bryce Young. Okay. I am not buying into any of these guys and their futures. So that's just my take on it. You do you, and I'll do me. But I can't say that I personally am buying it. Now, if it's just a second rounder and I've got oodles of seconds next year, say I've got 5 seconds next year, sure. Maybe I'll take him right now. But I mean, if you really want to get him, now is the time to, because once the season's over, I don't think Flacco is going to be back next year as the guy. And so the narrative will be Anthony Richardson going into 2025. Now, Richardson could retake the starting role at some point this year. Who knows? Flacco could get hurt. He could not perform. Maybe you know what I mean? Like the Colts go, let's say they go 1-2 or 1-3 in their next 4 games, right? Maybe they turn back to Richardson, okay? And then he turns it around. So that's all possible. All right. This week 2025 QB class helps him, I think. Yes, I would say so, Alan. I would say so, because I honestly, the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this upcoming class, Carson Beck, Shadir Sanders, Jalen Milroe, those guys. I mean, for me, I like Milroe only because of his rushing ability and what we've seen of rushing quarterbacks. Milroe reminds me of Jalen Hurts in that he wasn't a first-round talent. Milroe possibly won't get taken in the first round. He's probably a second-rounder in the NFL, and he has to go to the right situation. But he will get a shot at some point. All right, Will Levis got a shot this year. Those guys who are second-rounders, they get their shots. All right, so it all really depends on which team drafts him. But I think Milroe presents the highest ceiling of any of the guys in the class. Now, Carson Beck, I don't know. A friend of mine said that he reminds him of Matt Ryan a little, or his potential ceiling would be Matt Ryan. He wasn't saying that he will be Matt Ryan, but I see the similarities there in the demeanor and the talent level, similar to Matt Ryan. So I do think Carson Beck has done enough this year. I saw him with the Alabama game where he brought Georgia back, and what he's done since then. I think he's grown as a leader, and he's still a strong passer. So I think that I personally have risen my level of expectation of Carson Beck. Shadir Sanders, on the other hand, I don't love. Okay, I think it's just hype. I think a lot of it's based on who his dad is, and that's just my take on it right now. Again, could be wrong, but I'm very leery of them. If you take a look on my Patreon, patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show, you can check out my top 25 college rankings for the 2025 class. And you can see where I've got Shadir Sanders placed at number 7 there, who I've got ahead of him. I've got a couple of running backs, Genty and Amarian Hampton from North Carolina, the 2 wide receivers, as well the 2 receivers of Tet McMillan, TMC, and Luther Burden from Missouri. And then the quarterbacks, Carson Beck and Jalen Milroe. Now, I know that my personal ranking of Jalen Milroe is a little higher than most, but I'm just going with where I feel they are. I know that I probably won't have to take Jalen Milroe in the top 5. He'll probably be a late first, definitely based on where he goes in the draft. Again, he probably will be a second-round pick. And there's other quarterbacks there, too. There's Nussmeier from LSU. Trying to think of some of the other quarterbacks. There's Cam Ward out there. He's moved up the boards. Real heavy Heisman candidate. So those guys also could be first-rounders, maybe second-rounders. They're both in that sort of leeway position right now. So we'll see. A lot of college football yet to be played. We got a whole month of the regular season, and then we get the exciting 12-team college playoff this year. I'm excited about what's going on in college. All right, back to the NFL. What is up with the Cleveland Browns, huh? They have a former Heisman Trophy winner at the helm, Mr. Jameis Winston, bringing them alive. The Browns are alive now. Yes, just like the Colts wide receivers, Jameis Winston bringing the Cleveland Browns receivers back to life after Amari Cooper leaves to Buffalo in the trade. Now it's the Cedric Tillman show. Elijah Moore shows up last week. Jerry Jeudy did all right. David Njoku, of course, is there. And you got Nick Chubb in the backfield. So the Browns offense all of a sudden looks like they've got something going on now. Now, is it something that you can buy into? Well, let's be real here. If you had Jameis Winston stashed on your team, you probably didn't have to pay much for him, right? So, I mean, it's a free, what? You can get a third for him at least, right? You could probably get a second. I know that I was willing to give up a second last week prior to the matchup in my 16-team Superflex League. I ended up giving up Jacoby Myers for Jameis Winston in that league. I had what quarterback went down for me? Oh, I had Watson. Yes. So I had Watson, but I had DTR. I didn't have Winston also. I tried for him in the offseason, but the asking price I felt was too high. Now I was able to settle for something. Jacoby Myers was, I believe, my 5th or 6th wideout. So now I'm just plugging the hole in the back end of my flex there. But anyway, with Jameis Winston, if you are sitting on 3 other quarterbacks, this is the time to sell him. He just had a great week. I don't know that Winston is going to come back in 2025 as the Cleveland Browns quarterback. Now, if he's able to turn this thing into a playoff run for the Browns somehow, then it's potentially Winston's team, but that would be the only way I could see that happening. All right. If he keeps the interceptions down, has a good season, Winston, let's look back. Just go back to when he was in New Orleans, right? He had shown great potential there. He had turned his touchdown to interception ratio way into the positive compared to what he was doing in Tampa. And it was unfortunate, but he got hurt. I think he tore his ACL. And so, that was unfortunate for Winston. The Saints let him go then. And now he ends up in Cleveland and gets this shot. They will not see Watson back this year. I don't know how they could get out of the contract for next season or what they're going to try and do with Watson's contract this offseason, because if I'm the Browns front office, front office. I don't know that I want anything to do with Deshaun Watson anymore. But at this point, I don't know. I'm hoping that Winston can show that he can be a team of franchises quarterback again. Some guys it takes a little bit longer to happen. And maybe that's the case for Winston here. They got the Chargers coming up, then a bye, then they're at New Orleans and home to Pittsburgh. So definitely winnable games coming up here. This next 3-game stretch here, they'll play the Chargers, have a bye, and get ready for the next 2 winnable games. So we'll see what happens there. But again, take a look at those Cleveland wide receivers. Definitely going to get more targets. And I mean, Cedric Tillman, I think he's a thing. 1 week was 2 weeks ago when he had a good game, it was one thing. But then when he followed it up this last week with another 8-catch effort, let's bring up Cedric Tillman here. Cedric Tillman was, of course, I think they took him in the 3rd round out of Tennessee. Had a disappointing rookie season. There's his rookie log. Nothing great there. We have 1 catch, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, 18, 21 catches on the season as a rookie. So far already 18 catches for 189 and 2 touchdowns. Most of that in the last 2 weeks. So you can see his numbers here. As soon as Amari Cooper left town, Tillman slid right into that role, and he has been doing nothing but producing for them. So 8 for 81 and then 7 for 99. 12 targets, then 9 targets, so 21 targets in the last 2 weeks, the 2 touchdowns last week. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't try and buy into him. What's the asking price? A second, right? What are you really losing there? Again, let's go back to the 2025 class and what they have to offer. And if you need wide receiver, you're not getting very good talent in the 2nd round at wide receiver. This isn't going to be a typical class where it's full of nice dart throws in the 2nd round. This year's class is going to have a lot of good running back dart throws in the 2nd round. That's for sure. I will buy into the running backs in the 2025 class all day, starting with Genty up top. Then you've got like 5 or 6 running backs. Marion Hampton, the 2 guys from Ohio State, Junkins and Henderson. There's guys, Rocket Sanders is not even going to get taken in the first 2 rounds. He's going to probably be maybe even an undrafted free agent. That used to be the guy who was the number 1 guy in not this year's class, but last year's class. So what I'm getting at is this is a super talented running back class. So hopefully you need running backs if you got draft picks coming up in 2025. Because if you don't need them, you're going to probably be in trouble with this year's class. That's all I'm saying. All right. So, I don't know. Anybody have any other questions out there? Those are my main thoughts for today. Just want to remind you, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show, and hit me up at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show with your questions, start-sit questions, anything you want to throw my way. I'm ready for it. But glad to have you. Glad to have you tonight. It was enjoyable. With that, I'm going to wish you a great evening and remind you, never stop working.